Now back to Tell Me Everything on Sirius XM Progress 127.
This song was a monster hit. Were you alive in the late 80s? When I was a kid, I didn't know who Jackson Browne was, and then, boy, I did after this song. Clarence Clemons had a monster hit for this duet. For a couple of brief months, when Springsteen didn't have a single out, we heard Clarence Clemons' singing voice on our radios. And Clarence Clemons was born 81 years ago today in Norfolk, Virginia. This was his big solo hit. Happy birthday, swirling in the heavens, to the great Clarence Clemons. You know, here's my boring old Gen X guy. You know, I saw Clarence Clemons do this song live with Billy Preston singing the Jackson Browne parts, and that was pretty great. You can actually hear that duet on the very first Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band live album. If you want to hear Clarence try it with the Fifth Beatle. I'm John Fugelsang. This is Sirius XM Progress. We're at 866-997-4748, taking your calls all the way until midnight on the East Coast, 9 p.m. on the Pacific. It's now time to bring in our comedy daddy, one of the funniest, smartest players in the game. Keith Price is a comedian. He's an actor. He's a writer. He's a great broadcaster. He was the first openly gay black radio host at Sirius XM on the late lamented morning show for OutQ. And be sure to catch his wonderful Broadway podcast, Keith Price's Curtain Call. Comedy Daddy, welcome back.
Well, hello, my darling. How are you, sir?
How am I? I have Broadway news to give you. As you know, I've been trying to get out of the house more and go see more shows so I can actually run with the big boys like yourself. Last weekend, I finally got to go and see Strange Loop, the Pulitzer Prize winning musical, before it closed. But I went while the lead was out sick. And so Michael Jackson, the playwright and songwriter for the show, came in to fill in rather than the understudy. And as you probably know better than I do, well, I was there, but I'm sure you heard about it. They scrapped the blocking and they presented the show for a couple of performances as a concert, format. So the cast was all seated in chairs, and Mr. Jackson had a music stand and read his text as he did it. And it was wonderful. My wife kind of felt cheated that she didn't get to see the real show, but it was really a very remarkable happening, and I think it brought out the lyrics and the poignancy even more strongly.
You know, I guess so, because if you don't have the visual that was going on with everything that happens in that story, you don't have to clutch your pearls as much as I did in some of those moments. I was like, oh my!
Oh yeah, it's still shocking. I mean that whole scene where he hooks up with the white supremacist slave fetish dude. It was. The fact that they were just sitting on chairs, it was still shocking. And I mean, the crowd was going wild for it because the crowd had a lot of hardcore lifers for the show. So I kind of felt like I was invited to somebody else's birthday party a few times that I didn't know.
How wild.
But man, I'm so glad I got to see it before it closed, Keith.
Wow. I'm glad you're going. It's good finally to hear you going out. Now, were you masked?
I treated it like an airplane. Yeah, I wore a mask until I was seated. And once I was seated, I take the mask off. And on the airplanes, once they close the doors and no one's in the aisle, I take my mask off too. So that's how I did it.
Oh.
How about you?
All right. I was masked because I saw it still kind of towards the end of the craziness, so people weren't really super sure. So we stayed masked through the performance. But I got to see it literally probably, I want to say like 2 weeks or so before the Tonys, because I had just started working at MTC ushering on the side, and when I went to go see the play, I sit in the audience and that first song, Usher, 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 and I was like, oh my God. And then I look up on the stage and I see this, I don't want to say enormous, but this very imposing large black man who's also gay, who's also a creative, who's also trying to figure out his life. And, and oddly enough, I mean, there's about a 30-year gap between me and the actual character, but a lot of that journey, including the white supremacists. We've all, honestly, all of us have been there at some point, and it was really freaky, but I loved it.
That's what you keep hearing, the hype on the show. Oh, it's the story of a heavyset gay black man who's writing a play about a heavyset gay black man. But the other night, I got to see the actual heavyset gay black man who wrote it play the heavyset gay black man who's writing. And what I think is a sign of what a a
The Pulitzer
wonderful,
Prize winning.
successful musical it is the fact that no matter who you are or what your background, you or your age, there will be moments in this play that will touch you to your bones. And you think that, wow, a heavyset gay black man, little inside baseball, little, okay, that's a niche. But the
Mm-hmm.
universality of great storytelling means that a good story,
Yep.
especially a story about being lonely, is going to reach
Oh my
everyone.
God. I'm telling you.
Yeah, good stuff.
For me, like I said, it was just freaky to watch the whole story unfold and to watch the experience that this kid was going through, and and honestly seeing, I mean, to some almost some minute points, a lot of my life being put on this display with
I'll
this
bet.
kind of appeal. And it moved me because it's sort of like now that's it's changed the way that I'm thinking about my comedy now. It's changed the way that I'm thinking about writing. And it was, like I said, it was just like, woo, this is cutting close to the bone for me. And so when I met and then I wound up 2 weeks later meeting Jaquel Spivey, the actual guy
Ah,
who plays the
mm-hmm.
usher, and we took a picture together. I said, I have to talk to you and meet you. I said, because it's like art imitating life, imitating art. And it was like all too meta for me in the moment. And I
Of
was just
course.
like, am I you or are you me? It's like we're both like in the same kind of zone. And it was like I couldn't, it was too much for me. And like I said, that's like the first time I've ever been touched by a Broadway show like that.
Well, I mean, it
And
comes
I've
down to
seen
this issue of
Dreamgirls and I've seen, you
but
know what I'm
it
saying?
comes down to representation, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you, it's not just tokenism. You have the story of someone you've never seen before, and it could have been a story about a transgender Muslim living in Mexico. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's a good story, then it's universal, and so the representation shows how our commonalities do outweigh our differences. This is a show that tons of straight conservative white people should see, not just to broaden their horizons, but also to see how much they have in common with these characters that they would think they had nothing
Right.
in common with. It's just great
Yeah.
stuff. I was so glad to finally see it.
Or that they think they have nothing in common with.
Exactly, exactly. Hey, speaking of great storytelling, George Santos. Let's talk about the pride of Nassau County. Keith, I began the show tonight with a rant about how Jeff Beck had to leave and George Santos will never leave. And he won't. His job is as safe as a black band leader who laughs at all of Jay Leno's jokes. That's how safe his job security is, because they're never going to have a special election. They're not going to have a recall. McCarthy's not going to let him go. Joe Biden won that district by 10 points. They're not going to risk losing one of their 4-vote lead. So we should get very, very used to this corrosive, heroic liar being in Congress. And I say, great. Let him be the face of the party. Let them carry him proudly.
There's a part of me that agrees with that because you're right. It's like maybe this is what people need to see. It's like this is how corrosive this whole energy is that these people are bringing to the states or bringing to our nation's capital. And there are people out there that are supporting this because, as you said before, it's like, McCarthy needs this guy. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like McCarthy needs him more than he needs McCarthy, it almost feels like, because clearly by just saying, I'm not going to go and you can't make me nana nana boo boo, he's going to keep this gig. He's like going to wind up being like Effie White at the end of, Act One in Dreamgirls, and I'm telling you, I'm not going. That's what he's doing. And the thing is that they're letting him.
Well,
And
they
that
have to. And by the way,
and the fact that
these Republicans today demanding he resign,
that's
they
a
have
day
to
late
do
and a
that.
dollar short, baby.
But they have to do it. Listen, they should have known this and called on him to resign before he had the nomination before election day. They don't care. They don't want egg on their face, and so they have to show up and do this big performative. We call on him to resign now. So good. Now they've done their job. Of course he's not going to resign. They know he's not going to resign. They keep the seat, but they pretended to do something. It's the performative governance that defines the Republican Party. They're not going to do shit, but they'll make it look like they're doing something on a camera.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and the bottom line is that they have to do this now to save face. But the bottom to talk about where it would have been actually effective should have been in the moment that somebody did their research. Because here's again, all of these things are just falling out of the sky as, oh, well, this is a lie, this is a lie, this is a lie. Are you going to tell me that there's not, we're talking about an actual government job, that they're not going to do enough research to recognize that this stuff is a lie. So
the
that
Democrats
means
didn't,
that,
Keith. The Democrats didn't. The real villain here is the Democratic Party on Long Island in Nassau County. They had plenty of time. There were local papers that were documenting this. You do opposition research, for God's sakes. This guy lied about everything.
He lied about everything, and to me, that would have been the stuff that you could have laid out right there in that election debate, whatever that debate might have been, and just put it out there, and be a force to make sure that people knew that. And they chose not to, because they're assuming that, well, Joe Biden won by 10%, so there's a chance that we're probably going to win it, and this guy sounds kind of crazy, and they got lazy. And it's sort of like, they have to fight a lot harder to do this process now, because they've got nothing but opposition on every front, and it's going to be permeating in every committee and every little aspect of the business of hand that needs to get done. It's not going to get done for the next 2 years, because we have allowed these people, and again, I say we, and I mean really this country has allowed all of this lack of accountability to go too far. And now that we've done it, it's sort of like, well, how far back are you going to have to pull it in order to get it to be right? And the Democrats are afraid that once they start having to play that accountability game, that means that their closet doors are going to have to be open too. And that also scares the shish kebab out of them. And they need to just own their stuff.
The best part of this whole thing is Herschel Walker reading a newspaper saying, God damn it. God damn it. How come he gets to take a job in government and I don't? I'm just kidding. Herschel Walker has never read a newspaper. Keith, you want to take some calls from the evil army of the night?
Absolutely.
Friends, we are at 866-997-4748. We invite you to call and talk to our comedy daddy, Keith Price. Please, no wagering. One line only, 866-997-GRIT. Owen, can we pick up Chris in Virginia's call? Chris, welcome to Sirius XM. Good evening. Hi, Chris.
I don't see a Chris in Virginia. You might need
did that? Okay, there's something screwy with my software. I'm so sorry. Let me negate that. Let's go to Becky in Maryland then.
There you go.
Hey, Becky. Now I got the right thing. Hi.
Hi, John. Hello,
Becky
Keith.
is calling Chris. I think Becky's calling about the last.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I finally got to go see Wicked at the Kennedy Center.
Wonderful.
What did you
just
think?
Fall in love with Elphaba?
Yes, and I thought it was a really interesting take on the rest of the Wizard of Oz.
Right, because it's like how evil is that witch? We don't really know.
That was the last show I saw before COVID, before lockdown. My mother-in-law was supposed to come to New York, and she canceled her trip, and so we went to the Wednesday matinee. And at one point, we're like, hey, is there really a respiratory plague coming? And we're sitting in a crowded Broadway theater on Wednesday. And 2 days later, that theater was shut down. But that was the last thing I saw. I thought it was going to be my last musical ever.
It's been a long time since I've been able to go to the theater. My mother, it was something I used to do with my mother. When she passed away, I just stopped doing a lot of this. But what I thought was interesting is I do know that most plays or books or stuff, there's a societal underline or the political, but it was so relevant to now. Every time a line, like when they flipped that chalkboard and it said animals should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. Well, women should be seen and not heard. When she said, you're the one that caused this to the wizard, and he said, where I come from, if you want people to rally around you, you have to find somebody that they hate. And you're like, this is like now, when the captain
20 years ago this was written.
Right. And again, it was like when the captain said, these are lies, we have to stop telling, we need to tell the truth. Yet everybody kept saying, no, be quiet, you'll be able to move up through the ranks. And I'm like, well, that's what they're doing right now in Congress. Shut up. And I was like, this is really relevant. And I kind of wondered how many people in the audience actually caught all those little nuances.
I think the ones who already have critical thinking skills caught it. I think the ones who caught it, and the ones who didn't. By the way, I think it's lovely that you're still going to see musicals. My parents love musicals. When I was a kid, I never listened to rock and roll or jazz or anything like that. Broadway musicals was the only kind of records we had in my house. And, I still do it. When I go to see one, I always imagine my parents are there with me because I saw so many. I bought my parents tickets to so many over the years as holiday gifts. When I saw Hamilton, I was like, oh, my dad should be here watching this thing. I love that you're going, even though you've lost your mom, that you're still going to go see musicals, because I think that's something that you can still share with her.
When I was, I used to do it up with my mom. Like, I would actually rent a limo because I hated driving into the city. And we'd have the dinner and we'd have the limo ride, and we'd get a group of us to go see the Phantom of the Opera. And then we'd all get into the, and they, of course, they had the drinks for us, and they would play the music on the way home. And it was always such a big, special thing. And
nice.
Again, there was a lot of things when she passed that it's been hard to go do. Yeah. And this was the first time I'd been in a long time, and I really did enjoy. I love the Kennedy Center. It's just it's a nice venue, and there's just so much cool artwork around there and everything too. You're like looking at the statues and one of the things I noticed when I looked around the crowd, I was like, this is such a diverse group of people, and we're all getting along in this moment in time. And I said something to my friend who was with me, and they're like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I'm like, yep,
right.
We all should be getting along.
Nice.
It's so funny that you say that, because when I was working at Beetlejuice, one of the things that I used to notice a lot, especially
at Beetlejuice, the Broadway musical,
the Broadway musical, that when I would look at the audience of like 1,600 people every night, and I recognized that this is like the one, and I would say to them when I would do my cell phone speech, this is the one time that we have 2.5 hours to be together with not any stress from the world outside. We get to laugh at what's going on stage. And you should see the way that they responded to that. And it's sort of like, there's such a joy in going to see something like that, or going to be involved with something like that on such a communal level, that I don't know if people actually realize that they're all together enjoying one story. And however it makes them feel, it doesn't matter, because they feel something, but we're all in this room together. It really is a miraculous thing to watch happen, especially when you realize that everybody's from all over the world sitting in that room. It's
that's what I think I missed most in COVID. When I went to my first Broadway show this year, and last year now, I went to my first concert, just the notion of, oh my God, being in a room with people. And this speaks to what we're seeing now with movie theaters. I mean, will Avatar 2 be able to save cinemas? I kind of cling to the belief that we're always, as humans, going to want the experience of going to a place that's not our house, sitting in the dark with other people we don't know, and having a shared experience. I missed it in the pandemic, and I don't want it to happen to our theaters.
Yeah. And
I think in the theater, as opposed to the movie theater, the one thing you see is that we're all very mesmerized by what's happening on the stage, and very quiet until, okay, we're all cheering or we're all oohing at the same time. Like, because we ride with that more than I think in a movie theater, because in the movie theater you just tend to be quiet. So
sure,
I think it's more of a shared experience in theater.
I would agree,
because we take cues. We take cues from what's happening on the stage on how we should react, and
but
give them
but also in the cinema, on a packed house for a big movie where the crowd is just delighted and laughing or cheering in unison. I've had transcendent experiences there too, and great musicals, and I think it's still capable of happening in the cinema. But yeah, it happens a lot more in a theater or a concert or a stand-up comedy show.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Becky.
One other thing I wanted to mention before I go, Keith, when you were on OutQ, I was going through a rough time, and your laugh is so infectious. It used to brighten my day every time, and it still does to this day. When I hear you laugh, it brightens my day.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry at the beginning of the year, girl. Why you do that to me, girl?
Take the love, Keith. Take the love. Take the love.
Thank you.
That's right. That's right. People, you take the compliments. That's what they always tell me. You should take the compliment. But what bothered me most about OutQ is one day I turned on the radio and you were gone, and that upset me to no end, because it was just
me
like
too.
You were the bright spot that was. Like I said, I was going through a rough time, and every morning, and I'm like, all right, you'd start laughing, and I'd feel better. and then you
That's
were
right.
gone. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
That's
Oh,
right. Could have been worse. He could have been gone the way Dave Rubin was gone. That was even. It could have been gone the way Dave Rubin did. That could have been much worse.
But now he's
Thoughts
here,
and prayers.
and
Rest in peace, Dave, wherever you are.
He's you're here with John, so I always make sure I get to listen to you.
Well, you have to thank John for keeping me around all this time.
Oh, I'm just codependent.
You know?
I function better with Keith around. That's really
it's been a joy just to still be able to talk to people in general. And then when we have a moment like we just had, it just reminds me about how much I love what we get to do when we're doing this, and when I get the opportunity to really talk about stuff that I live for, as I do.
Prepared so much to talk about the FAA and these planes not taking off, and I can tell you, I've now spent more time discussing musical theater in the 21st century than what I thought was going to be one of our top stories. I love it.
You know what? I was thinking about this after the show. I was like, I got to call and talk to Keith about this, and then when you all started talking about the show you had just seen, I was like, oh, I got to call. I got to call and talk about Wicked.
Oh, well, listen, your mom raised a great lady and a great theater goer. Thank you so much, Becky.
If you make a chance, Becky, you have to come back to New York. You got to come up here, and you've got to see Some Like It Hot. I think you will love just the whole idea of it being such a fabulous old school musical. It's like it will be like a hug to your mama, because it's like a big 1930s musical happening on stage with amazing talent. Nice. So make that, if you have the opportunity, make that a plan for yourself. I think it'd be worth the trip.
Do what he says, Becky. Okay. Do what he says.
I will.
Thank you so much.
I have yet to go to New York and see anything. So
fix that in 23.
Well, there you go.
Fix it.
Boom.
You're right in Maryland. We're neighbors. Come on over.
Exactly.
I was just doing stand up. I was doing stand up in your state last month. We're a quick train ride away.
I know.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. 866-997-4748. Keith, oh my God, we haven't spoken since the end of my favorite reality show of 2023, the nonstop humiliation of Kevin McCarthy. They ended phase 1 last night. Phase 2 has now begun. Really quick, imagine owning this guy. They wasted no time passing anti-abortion measures to please the people that already support them. Here is Jim Jordan gleefully pretending he cares about anyone other than himself. A6.
This is a resolution that says we appreciate the good work that happens at crisis pregnancy centers, where they take in women, where they help them and help that unborn child, make sure that unborn child gets to experience the gift of life. The sanctity of life is what this is all about. And so I want to commend my colleague and friend, Mr. Johnson, from the great state of Louisiana, for this resolution, and the people across the country who volunteer and work every day at these centers to help these ladies who are in a tough situation.
There you go. Jim Jordan needs these young fetuses to grow up to be young men so they can be sexually assaulted in the Ohio State locker room while Jim Jordan does nothing about it. The circle of grift, folks. Circle of grift.
It's just amazing to me to hear them talk about, what they experience, the life. Experience what life if your mama can't afford to feed you. That's great. And being born into a government that doesn't want to get you fed, nor keep you healthy, or keep you alive, damn near. But sure,
that's right.
Why don't we just go ahead and make them have those babies? Yay!
And again, guys, blue high-tax states fund red low-tax states, okay?
Yes, they do.
This is Associated Press fact check shows it all the time. High-tax, traditionally democratic states, the blue states, we're the ones who subsidize those low-tax, traditionally red Republican states in a huge way. And so get ready, because they're now going to be punishing poor women with more poverty. And it's going to be happening in the red states that are already the poorest states. And you're about to see a whole bunch of women forced by these states to carry and bear children they can't afford. And the red states, the welfare states, have no plans to deal with all the new poor people they'll be creating. All this for something that's not even forbidden by the damn Bible. Keith, it's just... The only consolation is that Kevin McCarthy's going to be so bad at his job, it will be kind of fun watching his caucus tear him apart for 2 years.
Well, if so, I mean, I think the best part about watching Kevin McCarthy is you can see how far his back will bend, because he's so busy being flexible to everything and everyone, because he he has no real power. It doesn't seem like to me. If it took 15, tries for him to become, his RuPaul's Drag Race winner, if it took him that many times to do it, and that's without any confidence with all of those different people, it's like it's not a united front whatsoever, which to me shows what we're going to be dealing with. And he's going to be another useful idiot for whatever propagandist that's happening. It's like, what is it? Michael Beckless posted this thing the other day about should seditionists be allowed to be in government? And I was like, well, isn't that in the Constitution? Like, we have to prove that they're seditionists. That's what it is. And then once we prove that they're seditionists, then we can, throw that 14th Amendment Section 3. You know what I mean?
Keith, are you a Hakeem Jeffries fan? And how hot is he on your radar?
He's pretty hot.
He's up there.
Pretty gosh darn. Yeah, he's given, political power hot, and then how you doing hot. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like looking at Hakeem, honey, and then I like to watch him just cut people up. He just be cutting them with them words, girl. He just be getting them.
So you're the Hakeem hot team. We got to take a quick one. Keith, can you stay with us till the top of the hour?
Yes, Lord, I can stay with you. Where am I going?
Right back with some final thoughts and your calls at 866-997-GRIT in just a couple minutes. This is Progress. Check it out. Morning Consult and Politico had a survey of the most popular senators in their home states. John Barrasso of Wyoming, Republican, number one, 66% approve of him. Mitch McConnell, the least popular. Only 29% of voters in Kentucky approve of him. But John Tester, Democrat, Montana, 60% approval. Kyrsten Sinema, not doing so hot, 37%. Manchin at 40%, Ted Cruz 45%, Mitt Romney at 46%. None of them can touch Keith Price, who is coming in once again at 100% approval from the folks back home. Keith, what is the best way for our listeners to follow you and keep up with all your doings?
They can find me at Comedy Daddy on the Twitter and KeithPriceComic.com. And if you happen to be in the city in Queens on Friday at 11 o'clock, I'll be doing the End of the Line comedy show with Katie Compass, one of the hosts, at QED. So look it up online. It'll be fun. And I'll post more stuff about it later on in the week so that if it is on your mind, you will come. Hey.
Thank you. Thanks, Keith. So good to see you. Follow Keith at Comedy Daddy. I'm John Fugelsang. Thank you, Owen, for filling in for Thea again tonight and staying up late. Thank you, as always, to the great Chris Hauselt for running this whole monster and making me want to be better every day. Tomorrow on the show, former head of the NAACP, our friend Ben Jealous, and Professor Corey Bretschneider. I'm John Fugelsang. Keep it tuned to Progress, and God bless Jeff Beck. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.